like saying that. Okay, my name is Donna Emery, and I am the chairperson for the Nonpartisan Committee. So I'm glad you guys are here. Thank you for coming. Welcome you here today, this morning, because you could be doing other things, right? Like bowling. But anyway, we're calling the meeting, and the time is, I don't know, time is
10:35.
10:35. Okay. We welcome everyone. If you wish to speak, we ask that you be a member first. Your dues are $3 for family, and seniors are $2. So is everyone a member today?
Yes.
Yay, I like it. Okay, awesome. Okay, we start this meeting this morning to introduce the board members. I'm Donna Emery, I'm your chair.
Chip Young.
Samuel Brooks, Al Sturgis, and
Marlon Kennedy.
Alyssa Seaman.
Thank you. Okay, we have approval of minutes by L. Sturgis. Please read the minutes of November 18, 2018, post-election meeting. It's pretty lengthy. What do you think? You want to listen to it? No? What do you think?
I make a motion that we do whatever.
Oh, do whatever.
I second do whatever.
I don't want to repeat any.
Okay, that's why you're here.
Yeah.
Report.
Can I read it though, off to the side?
Sure,
This
sure.
being my first meeting.
And your name, please?
My name is Terry Schmidtgens, and I
Okay,
would like
Terry.
to know what you guys discussed last
Hi,
year.
Terry. Say hi. Hi, Terry.
Hi, Terry.
I have a question. What about Al? Was that an email you sent? Were those the same things in the email you sent out? Were those minutes in the email you sent out?
Yes,
Long ago?
they are.
So everybody should have a copy.
Yeah, I read them.
Okay.
I like hands-on stuff.
Oh, see.
I did like paper.
2 years ago.
Hey, Al. It's just like that.
We could go back to the year you were born.
Everybody in favor of not reading the minutes, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Yes. Since we're all here among friends, would you like to introduce yourselves?
You start over here if you want.
Okay.
Yes, my name's Robert Polkovac. I live on Hay Street. I've been
Okay.
in Park Forest since '92.
Okay, next.
Victoria Kokovac, since
Y'all live in the same house? No, I'm just being funny, that's all.
No, they just have one of those names like
I
Smith.
know.
Like Smith.
Gotta have a little, a little sense of humor. Go ahead.
Mary Jane Rifel, I've been in my home since 1983, and I live on what has been referred to as the worst street in Park Forest, and that would be Washington.
Really?
Who made that?
I don't.
Why is it Washington?
Well, we have a lot going on. It's only 2 blocks long, and we have like 8 empty houses and 1 shell of a home that's half burned down and has been standing that way for about 4 years.
Wow.
So people find, when you have empty houses, well, let's party here tonight. And then the shots ring out, and then,
Oh, wow.
oh yeah. Lot of stuff happening on the wash. George is rolling over in his grave.
Okay, next.
Becky Schmier, I'm area E-co-ops.
Okay. Next.
Doug Price.
Mary Walker, area E.
Okay.
Dan Graham, West Lincolnwood. We've been in Park Forest since '78.
Bill White. Bill Graham.
Andrew Gladstone, I've been in Park Forest since 1951.
Wow.
Got you beat.
Wow. That's awesome.
Fantastic. We ought to give you a round of applause.
Before there were sidewalks beat on Mark.
There you go.
Wow.
That's a
I
good
can't beat him, but I'm close. My name is Terry Schmidtgens. I was born and raised in Park Forest. I don't want to give out ages.
Yeah.
I was born in 1959. However, I did move away and around in my 20s and my 30s, back home with mom and dad, and my mom. So it's always had a wonderful place in my heart, Park Forest. And Mantua, it's not claimed anywhere, but it's the best street ever. In Park Forest.
Over there.
There are a couple empty houses, I will say.
Well,
but-
good, there's one for me.
Next.
I'm Yvonne Martin. I moved here in 1964. They told me, welcome, you're number 20 at the time. So I can say maybe I didn't grow up here, but I grew into adulthood here.
Awesome.
I'm still working on the adult.
Hi, my name is Joe Woods, and I'm a 15-year resident. I like to say that I didn't call Park Forest called me, so I've been here ever since.
Gary?
Gary Kopachinski, Ash Street, and doing some recording for E-News Park Forest.
Get in front of the camera.
Yeah, get in front of Gary. Come on, Gary.
Come on.
You can do it. Yay, Gary.
The photographer never wants to be.
And we have
Photograph.
a lovely police officer.
All right.
Right there. We can't say your name first of all.
I'm Officer Jahimiak. Everybody calls me Officer JJ because nobody can say my last name. Been in Park Forest now this April. Let's see. This month it'll be 10 years total.
Oh, 10 years. Okay. All right. Well, welcome. Okay. Let's see. Are we going to go to the treasury report? Marlon.
So, currently we have $2,200 in our CD, and we have $746 in our regular bank account. And since I'm not running for treasurer again, I'm going to transfer a detailed report to our new treasurer, whoever that is. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're going to move over to talk about, that's good, okay. All right, I wanted to bring something different to the Nonpartisan group, coming from working in Chicago, advertising for over 40 years, well, 40 years, I guess I'm telling my age now, 40 years in advertising. So I brought to our group and suggested that why not talk to the various people in the village hall to find out if we could use the message boards, which would be by the fire department and also the one on Orchard and Route 30 Lincoln Highway. So they were very accommodating. Everyone was so open. Thomas K. Mick, the manager, village manager, he's an amazing person because he was so helpful for us and our group here, making things work smoothly. Sandra Zollner, who approved me able to use the message board on Orchard and Route 30 Lincoln Highway. And also the police department, they have their message board there all the time, and I thought, well, you know what, a way of getting the message out. Since we, being in advertising, you use the bigger boards, that you see the billboards outside, that's what we're used to using, but this is Park Forest, and so you just use what you can use, and that's the outside message boards. So they were more accommodating, and people told me that they were able to watch those dates and know when to come here to have these open forums. So I'm so grateful for bringing that to our table. And so moving forward, you never know what you can do until you're in a group and you can figure out something to make it happen. And I'm grateful that I could do that, to bring that to our table. So I wanted to thank the Park Forest Village Hall, Thomas K. Mick, also the fire department, Tracy's, the two Tracy's, the administrative department, E-News, area, he's so important, TV and our social media, what would we do without social media, right? And our sponsorships, the Park Forest League of Women Voters, Park Forest Co-ops, Sandy Isaac, Park Forest Nonpartisan Committee, can't leave us out, the NPC moderators, we have Barbara Stroges, Elle's lovely wife, and we had our Judge Raymond Footberg. We had our candidates, we had our trustees, we had our library board, and most importantly, our residents, Park Forest. Yes. We love you. Thank you. This would never happen without you showing up here to make it work. It never would have worked if you guys weren't here. Okay, that's my little spiel on that. So, I'll give you a report on how many showed up for these various forums. Our first forum was by the League of Women Voters, held on January 13th. We had 85 attendance. March 3rd, our forum, NPC forum, was attendance of estimated about 120 people. Our co-op forum, which was on March 17th, we had attendance over 100, about 104. So give yourself a round of applause, because without you attending, it's never going to work. I like this part. Good. So at this point in time now, we are going to switch over to Al, so to nominate someone in our committee, our treasurer.
What, we want to do directors first?
Oh, excuse me, directors first.
Okay, we have only one director whose term extends to 2014, that's Marlon Kennedy. And so my term is up now, and everyone else was added to the board within the last 2 years, so they need to be, so the nominating committee, Chip Young and I, nominate the following people for the board of directors. Donna Emery, Chip Young, Donald Brooks, Al Sturgis, and Alyssa Seaman, who has expressed an interest in this and has volunteered to take the minutes today, and Andrew Gladstone, who has had his arm twisted. So that would be 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus Marlon, 7 members, and we had, the bylaws call for 9. So I guess let's see if we get a motion to accept the report of the nominating committee.
So moved. Second.
Ask who approves and say aye.
Oh, who approves this?
Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? I'm learning, okay.
So now you can ask for additional nominations.
Are there any other additional nominations? Step forward, don't be afraid. We need you.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, yeah. We weren't sure.
Well, there were some people who had expressed interest, but
They're not here.
I think we need to
They need to be present.
confirm that they're interested.
Is there anyone else that would be interested in?
Well, I'll put my name forward.
Oh, awesome, your name?
Mary Jane Ryle.
Awesome.
R-I-O-P-E-L?
L-E.
Ask for additional nominations.
Any additional nominations? One more? This lovely lady right here. You keep looking at me. I don't know, you're smelling.
Ask for a motion that nominations be closed.
Nominations, a motion, the nomination may be closed.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, no?
Okay.
Okay. Is it? Okay, let's see.
So I guess we probably ought to have a motion that the nominees be elected.
Okay, and we need to make a motion that the nominees be elected.
Don't you have, excuse me, don't you have to close nominations?
Just did.
We did before that.
We did,
Yeah,
okay.
that's okay. Just want me to do it again? I'm just teasing.
I move that we vote on is it the 8 now on the slate?
Okay.
I second.
Second, somebody needs a second? Okay, and I close, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, yikes. Take this
Fan, honey.
This is so new.
You're doing well.
I've enjoyed
You're
it.
doing
I
great.
love your sense of humor too, so.
Yeah, I have to have a sense of humor. I gotta throw that money in there. Okay, so next.
Officers, I can, nominating committee proposes that for officers for the next 2 years, Donna Emery, chair, Donald Brooks, treasurer, Alyssa Seaman, secretary, and that's it. We didn't have a nominee for vice chair.
Yes.
So we ask that the nominating committee report be approved.
Nominating committee approve. All the three offices.
So moved.
Second, okay. Are there any? I don't know what this is.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I ask if there are additional nominations,
Oh my God, is there additional nominations,
including for vice chair.
including the vice chair? This is so torture. Yes, anybody? No?
Can we talk about briefly, maybe the description of the vice chair and their responsibilities?
That's a good point.
Okay,
That would be good.
in the bylaws, let's see, what the bylaws have to say.
Yeah.
Vice chairperson shall assist the chairperson and act for him, her, when he, she is unable to conduct NPC business.
Be my right arm. Left arm, right arm. Come on, Chip.
I'll help you.
Okay, and any other nominations? Come on, you guys.
I should not right now, I should have given you the information.
I know you did. So,
Not right now.
okay, Al,
For what?
he tried to take, he
The
tried
vice chair.
to, yeah, you try to get, he tried to get,
Wait, will you promise to give her the,
I will
the
promise,
script?
I'll promise to help.
Okay, I mean,
well, I just got the script the other day, so, I just got it the other day, so I'm like, oh, really? I'm not shooting a commercial. Well, maybe I am. But anyway,
Ask for more nominations?
more nominations? Anyone?
Motion for nominations be closed.
Nominations be closed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, thank you. Anything else?
Opposed.
Any opposed?
Yeah. Anybody oppose the motion? She said, Greg, get up. Oh,
So
God.
we need a motion.
We need a motion.
Elect the nominees.
We need a motion to elect
Make
the
a motion that
nomination.
the nomination be closed.
I second, you second. Okay, I can't second, you second. This is so bad.
All those in favor?
All in favor say aye.
Opposed.
Opposed? Any? comments from the members? Members? Everybody still awake? Everybody?
Still here.
Okay, okay,
I guess I'm surprised that nobody wants to talk about the campaign.
Oh, I thought you were, so you're done with this?
yeah, we've done that part.
Waiting for you to take care of business.
Well, I know everybody's still waiting, so they're not leaving, so, okay. Do we need to open it up? Okay, the floor is yours. We'd like to open up your opinion about the campaign, the election. Just introduce yourself.
I have a question. I'll open it. I'm not familiar with the candidates' responsibilities regarding rejecting or accepting endorsements. Is that in the Nonpartisan Committee's bylaws somewhere, which I have not read? So, could you introduce me to where I get information about that, and so that I familiarize myself with what the candidates' responsibilities are regarding specific endorsements from specific?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, the candidates have agreed, and let's see, I wish I had it right. They would, I've got it here.
You got it.
In order to participate in the forums, the candidates signed an agreement that states that, in part, find it here. Oh, man.
They can accept nominations.
They can
They can accept nominations from any entity other than political party.
Yes.
And that's what the problem
It says all candidates who run for office in Park Forest signed an agreement with the Committee for Nonpartisan Elections in Park Forest, and includes the following. I understand that I may accept the endorsement and support of a group other than a political party, providing the group advocates only my candidacy. Signing this agreement with the Nonpartisan Committee allows candidates to do the following, according to the organization. It makes it convenient for any legally qualified residents to run for public office at little expense and regardless of race, creed, sex, age, or political party. It gives Park Forest voters the opportunity to hear all candidates and ask them questions at open meetings. In essence, agreeing to the rules set down by the Committee for Nonpartisan Elections and later accepting an endorsement from a political organization allows one to have one's Rebellion cake and eat it. I'm just saying.
This is from Gary.
This is from Gary.
Yeah, no.
It's not the bylaws.
Yeah, it's not in the bylaw.
Yeah, but I just kind of like, it sounded pretty good. I thought it sounded pretty good.
The first part,
Quote, unquote.
the bullet points were from the Nonpartisan Committee's
Right.
Facebook page. The latter was my
Candidates' campaign
interpretation.
practices which all candidates sign.
Right.
I have a question. So, let's just say the rules were broken, then what? What's the,
That's.
Well, what we have done in the past is announced that at the beginning of forums and publicized it where we can.
okay, what? If the rules are broken, what's the consequence?
That the candidate is not permitted to participate in the forums that we have.
And you know what I mean? And from what I understand, we just found out about this information after the forums, after the forums were done.
Right.
So there isn't too much that the committee could do. If we would have found out, obviously ahead of time, then we could announce it at the forums.
Can you make a public statement about that rule breaking or not, even after the fact?
Do we know for sure that there was rule breaking?
I'm saying that would be on your call as a board.
Al, you did make a public statement. did make a statement about, you know, the endorsement. You did make a statement of that. And I thought, Gary, didn't you publish that?
Well, I think everybody, and I was included, and maybe all members here.
It was all included in his, the write-up.
The email.
No, it was in another one that I received an email from Al, and I believe everybody
Yeah.
on the committee received an email from Al, basically asking the Rich Township Democratic Organization to get out. But that was already done.
Yeah. It was something to do
So
basically.
what we don't know for sure is whether the candidates accepted that endorsement.
Right, because you were stating an opinion, but the committee does not make any attempt to control other people.
Well, we just asked.
You asked. In other words, you didn't find a fault. What you did was you directed a request to an outside entity.
Right.
Who did not sign the nonpartisan agreement.
True.
Is it the fault of the candidate though, or of the endorser?
Well, I mean, for me, I think the critical component is in the membership or the statement of the purpose of the committee, which has always been, and Al knows this better than I because he's, I think, one of the founders of this committee. Well, all right, well then, it's been around for a long time, but the critical component in the purpose of the committee was to make it possible for candidates to run for public office in Park Forest at no cost to the candidate. And it is still stated in the committee's purpose that that is the goal, and it actually suggests that that is the result if you do participate with the nonpartisan committee and follow its rules. And there may have been a time in Park Forest where one could communicate to the 10,700 registered voters that we have now via the tools that the nonpartisan committee provides you. Those have not been the days for decades. And that's the dilemma for a candidate. The dilemma for a candidate who wants to contact voters is that if they leave their contact up just to the wonderful efforts of the nonpartisan committee and some of the finest forums that you'll find in the Southland, that is not sufficient to get elected.
Okay, but there are things that are fine with us, like putting up yard signs, having individuals endorse them, but not political parties.
No, I only raise this not to justify candidates' behavior, but just to say, once you find yourself in the need of funds in order to run for office, beyond the influence of this committee, you are now subject to all of those pressures, good and bad. And look, let's be honest, there are people that want to buy candidates. I mean, we're not naive about that. So I'm not saying that they're justified in their behavior. I'm just saying that those days of being able to do it just on the committee's dime. And I'll give you one example. I live in the largest precinct in Park Forest. My neighborhood represents half of that precinct. We sent out 9 notices from January till election day that there was an election happening. 9. Now that's not, I'm not talking about candidate notices. I'm talking about hand-delivered 9 notices to every household. That precinct had a 25% turnout. The rest of Park Forest had a 20% turnout. And when you consider that we're only half of that precinct, the half that got the 9 notices had a 30% turnout.
Wow.
Now that is expensive.
Yeah.
That's expensive. That's how you get people to vote. You nag them. And it's
Jane
expensive.
wasn't that high.
What's that?
Well, the gain wasn't that high then.
Well,
This election-
no, it was a 50% increase in turnout with 9 contacts, that's pretty significant.
You said a 50% turnout?
Well, the village turnout was 20%.
Right,
The precinct I'm in had a 25,
okay.
but I know that I held up the other half of the precinct. So we did 30, which balanced off the 20 in the other half. But I mean, the point is, and all it was is, this is your obligation, and then on election day, we went out at night, in the middle of the night, and put up signs next to each one of their cars and said, vote today. So I mean, all I'm saying is, this is not an inexpensive process. I have 7 employees that work for my co-op, you know, and I mean, they did this because as a business, as in a neighborhood, we think citizens should vote. We didn't tell them who to vote for. But that's the dilemma for candidates, is, you know, how to get money to make that voter contact.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You said this is not inexpensive. Could you give me an idea of what the expense is?
Well, look, I mean, I've got 5 maintenance employees. It takes them 3 hours to cover the co-op. So 3 hours times 8 times around is 24 hours. And I'm not gonna tell you what they make per hour.
24 man
But
hours.
yeah, 24 person hours times
And
a
the
good wage.
publishing of the signs.
A good wage, plus benefits and a retirement plan. So in lieu of fixing toilets, they were distributing civic information about voting.
So it sounds like, to clarify what's happened with our election and the endorsement that happened, we might want to issue a timeline that would show when the nonpartisan committee found out about the endorsement, and the fact that that happened after the forum, and the fact that the only punitive measures that we are involved with are having the candidate not speak at the forum. We don't keep anybody from fulfilling their, from moving forward if they win or lose. So, is that something that we should do to educate the public so that we don't have so much information about this?
Well, I don't think that there's anything that the nonpartisan party can do
Okay.
if it doesn't revolve around the forums.
Yeah.
Because, like I
Okay.
said, this happened after the forum, so
Mhm.
what
Okay.
recourse is there?
Yeah.
What is there to say?
Right, but I think we should address that very fact to say that there is no more to say. Because I think I follow Facebook, and there have been some hurt feelings about this, so I wonder if we should say what happened and the extent of our responsibilities, just so that it's clear.
Yeah, in terms of responsibility, I think that this committee, appropriate reaction, without and after the election, ends up defanging this organization. We as an organization, and I've been involved in it indirectly for a number of years, must respond to what has happened this year, primarily because it demonstrates the integrity of this organization and whether or not it's even viable in the future. If we're not going to be responding, if we simply say, well, this is post-election, therefore we have no responsibility, or rather we have no way of exercising any kind of punitive action, then in the future, how viable are we as an organization? We must, at the very least, have a timeline with names in terms of who benefited and who was responsible for certain reactions or certain input that the community received. I'm not concerned about the expense. I've been involved in the expense angle of an election, and the expense is something that the candidate incurs willingly. Either that or get out. So that as a justification, I don't think washes anything. We must respond very assertively if we're going to be maintaining the integrity of this organization.
I agree. Well, but in my opinion, Gary's done, if you don't mind Gary, has already done an analysis of who benefits, and really only one person benefits.
But we haven't made it clear.
No,
It's not clear.
But is that the role of the nonpartisan?
yes, it
Yes,
is, and
we have to
here's
defend her.
why. Gary has a limited number of people, and I don't know the number of people, but not in his organization, but a limited number of people who actually see the e-news. Because it costs money, many people don't do that. They only get it secondhand. That being said, what outlet should we reach? Now, I'm assuming that the Village of Park Forest is a de facto member of the organization. Is that accurate?
No, it's not accurate.
Okay. We should ask them, because they're the ones with the repeated contact to the village, all the participants, all the residents of the village, to publish our response. I don't think that's unreasonable because the village elects people to be on the Board of Trustees and to impact accordingly whatever's going to be happening over the next 3 or 4 years. Now, should they then willingly accept the appraisal because most of the village will not know what has happened?
Well, we can ask the village to, if we put together a press release, let's call it, we can ask the village if they would put it on Channel 4 or whatever that.
Or in the water bill?
Water bill.
I would suggest that the political platform of the nonpartisan committee is a political platform. It is a good government platform. It is an ethical platform. It's what allowed, its argument about nonpartisan politics in Park Forest is one of the reasons that we don't have the same percentage of thieving elected officials as all of our neighbors have. But it is a political platform. And I'd be very wary if I had government sharing this political platform, because all we have to have is another kind of government sharing its own political platform. And at that point, we've got government officials basically putting out their political story, which is also what happens in our neighboring communities. I think the nonpartisan's value has always been it steps kind of aside of the partisanship, and it has great forums, which every candidate wants to participate in, and it's got some morality judgment that it can do. Maybe a little bit of embarrassment, maybe a little public criticism. So I wouldn't underestimate saying something publicly, but I would be very wary about asking government to be
No, fair enough. By that, I'm simply asking a way to extend the impact of this organization and to make future candidates wary of what that reaction might be, both within the committee itself, but also in the village at large. Because if we speak out for integrity, if we speak out for decency and for following the rules that the candidates have willingly signed in order to participate, if we hold them to that fire, I don't know that there's going to be an adverse reaction. Rather, I think it's going to be positive.
I would agree, and I would say look to the committee's current strengths, which are some of the, and there's been discussions over the latter years, the 3 past forums in this election cycle were what was most attractive to every single candidate.
I make a motion that the committee recognize speakers before they speak.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate what you're saying. That is just to simplify things. I know she's been waiting to get for a while.
If, I also
The
agree that.
committee, would you support, the chair start recognizing speakers and people in the audience raise their hand and be recognized before they speak.
I also agree that it might not be in the village's umbrella to recognize that, but I think that a village meeting where you can get up as a village, either an individual or as the group, and just state your statement and just leave it at that is also another way to publicly acknowledge your stance and leave it at that.
Has the board, it's so early, so obviously this is the first meeting since the election. Would you consider, or would we consider asking the elected officials involved to address the situation publicly in either forum or someplace else, so they can explain themselves, and then perhaps before we address future violations or try to take action to avoid future violations, we can do so after the individuals involved in the alleged violations respond to what occurred. I would make a motion to have.
I would, towards reaching the people, would the committee consider a village-wide mailer itself, bypassing any other resource, but whatever the statement is eventually, put it together and send it to every household in Park Forest?
We have two motions right now. Jerry?
I see dangers in anything you try to do right now. If we want to get the village to announce a sanction or a verbal sanction against candidates, if that candidate has won a seat on the board, you're getting into all sorts of connivances available. Two, I don't think the village even wants to put its fingers on this, because then they have a chance, then they have, you voted for that candidate who's on the board, we don't think that candidate who's on the board, trustee, is doing well. I think the village will never say, no, it's not our problem. I think the village will say, it's not our problem. The elections are held, we certify the winners of the elections, and they're on the board, okay? The village does not want to do it. I think you'll get a real kickback from village officials if you want to do it. One more thing, okay? We're trying to bell the cat. We're trying to bell the cat. The mice got together and decided, how do we keep the cat from killing our mice, our friends, okay? He said, we put a bell on the cat, but no one knows how to put the bell on the cat. Gary, you may have heard this as well as I have. When the political organization announced its choices, endorsements, it was done at a meeting where more than one candidate was there hoping to get that endorsement. So it wasn't a matter of, oh, I didn't know this was going on. Some candidates were there hoping for the endorsement of the Rich Township Democratic Organization.
That needs to be included.
Well, you're going to have to ask someone to confirm this. But this is not just some organization coming out of the blue. Apparently they had a public meeting in a restaurant in Richmond Park where that was done.
Were they not aware of the nonpartisan committee?
Did they care?
Was it
Did
an
they
open
care?
meeting?
Okay.
Yeah.
If they were aware and they cared, they wouldn't have done it.
Right, exactly.
We recognize it.
Exactly. Okay. I was on that and I was not contacted at all.
You were on what?
On the RTO
Rich Township?
endorsement, the endorsement that came out, I was on that. All three of us were on that.
Yeah.
Oh,
None of us were aware of it, and nobody contacted us at all
Where did it
and
come
said
from?
anything.
Yes.
Wow.
And I'd also like to include, nor did, and I don't know if I can speak for you, for these two also, nor did we ever request it. We never requested any endorsement. So it was just as much a surprise to us when our names actually appeared on it.
So somebody
And
said.
in addition,
Did it?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go on.
But you were running unopposed.
That's my
One
point.
vote.
There you go.
They
Absolutely.
didn't need it. They just put check marks down next to every candidate. They put check marks down to all the candidates of trustee and the library board
Who were not
on the
opposed.
ballot.
Absolutely. So anyone who was not opposed, all those who were not opposed, the trustees, including the library board trustees, were included on that list. I mean, Linda Marin, and, you know, I know for a fact that I didn't even know about the Richland Township organization. So,
That was just a slick way of doing it, that's all. You know, you just take the ballot and you just put your candidate, the one that you want to win, up there, and that's what he did, and then the rest he just brought down. It's just a slick way of doing it, but still getting in who you want to get in.
Point
That's
of
all
order.
it was.
Has there been a second to the motion?
No, there's been no
Okay, we're
recognition.
still letting people.
Well, what's the motion? There should be a motion and a second before discussion. Point of order.
There was a motion to recognize speakers before they speak.
Yeah.
There's a motion to,
It's not seconded.
that's not seconded.
Second.
Who carried moral
Get them
authority?
out of the way.
Can you repeat your motion?
Well, can we,
Would the board recognize people before they speak, recognize them through, or the members raise their hand to be recognized?
I think there was a movement for, a motion for a nonpartisan committee to have a forum, and then there was a motion for the nonpartisan committee to have a village-wide mailer.
okay, I didn't make a motion. I made a
Oh.
suggestion.
Oh.
We should go one motion at a time.
Yes.
Yes, we should.
So let's go.
Somebody has a second.
How about the motion?
Somebody did second your
Oh,
motion.
so just,
The motion for,
To recognize.
Oh, okay. That's
To recognize.
Okay, so wait a minute. There's no.
Can we vote on that first?
Right.
Well, I think there's a point of order that we need,
Who's talking?
me, point of order. That one motion needs to be completed before another motion is even
I know.
stated.
So
So
that's why I brought it up.
I think this motion about recognizing people needs to be completed before proceeding.
Oh, okay, someone needs to second.
Was someone second?
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the motion
And then
to?
no need to vote on it.
Vote on it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Moving on now.
Gotcha. There's a motion for the NPC to have a forum. Is that something?
No,
that
no,
you-
no.
Oh, no.
to request that the candidates involved, and the three trustees, thankfully, just did, who address the violation that was, that the village violation of the endorsements to publicly. I don't know, let's choose, you can, I don't have any ideas about how to choose that. I mean, and, so I'm done speaking.
Okay.
Okay.
Karen?
So, might I suggest that your motion is that
I'll
the,
reject the motion, it's just a suggestion.
okay, not a motion.
I was trying to get suggestions.
Okay.
There are no motions on the floor.
There's no motions on the.
No motion.
Just comments.
Okay.
The only thing that I see that's going to happen is that the Rich Township Democratic Committee or Republican Committee or Socialist Committee, whomever, it's going to happen again and again and again and again after every, or before every election. And as this lady said over here, the part that was so unsettling was the fact that it was like, you got the postcard, boom, you went to the poll. I mean, it was like right there, just before the elections. The only way that we can keep that from happening is to come out with a strong statement about what the candidates signed and how this, let me get my words. What the candidates signed and how this eliminates endorsements by any political party. And you could name them if you wanted to. But if we don't do something to make a statement, and a very strong statement, I think it will just continue to happen, and eventually we will become a partisan village.
Yeah, I have actually a specific motion. I don't know whether it's viable, but I would move that the committee, after all future elections, but including this one, that we invite the various candidates to review the specifics of the election and how to improve future elections. The rationale thereby is we're going to ask them what was good, what was bad in our minds and theirs, and thereby make it better. And if they don't show up or refuse to show up, okay, that's also fodder for any future communication you may have.
Let's vote on it.
I'd like to second that and make a comment that that has been the purpose of this meeting in the past. It was for the candidates to come in and make suggestions as to what we're doing, whether they like it, whether they think we want to change. And I should say that I got an email from Jonathan Vanderbilt saying he had another meeting, he would try to be here, but he would be late. So.
And we have 20 minutes left of this meeting scheduled, just FYI.
I just wanted to make a statement real quickly. I did reach out to Jonathan in regards to the endorsement, and his response was, I was never asked about being endorsed by the RTDO. Furthermore, I have not been given any campaign support from the RTO. Moreover, my campaign receipts are on file with the Illinois State Board of Elections and can be reviewed for clarity. Thank you, Jonathan. That's his response back to me. Yes.
First of all, on the face of it is false. He had 1,500 pieces of mail sent to homeowners in Park Forest.
No, he didn't.
No, he had 1,500 pieces of mail sent to, now let me explain the rules. The Rich Township Democratic Organization will have to file with the state government that they made an in-kind contribution, and the candidate that received the in-kind contribution will have to notify the state government that I received it. On the face of it, that is an absolute denial of the election laws in Illinois. If somebody on their own goes out and spends money for a candidate and they are a political party, they have to file that as an in-kind contribution, and the candidate has to acknowledge receiving it. And they can claim all they want that they didn't want it. The law states that it was a contribution in kind, period. Now, he could still make the argument I didn't want him to do it, but he cannot not acknowledge it, except for the fact that the Rich Township Democratic Organization for the last 2.5 years has failed in its duties to file an election report. It is the only political organization in Cook County that has not filed an election report with the state government in the last 2 years.
And the state board hasn't filed it?
We wouldn't know unless somebody filed a FOIA on that. But they haven't filed an election report in 2.5 years. So this committee's concerns are valid concerns. It's just a complicated issue, is you know.
Well, Dan Grant, my only point is, and what I was trying to get across before is, can we actually do something? And what you're saying is more of a, we can do something other than say, hey, there goes the cows, they're out of the barn.
Right.
That's my...
Well, and to answer that question, if I could be permitted, I do not belong to one of the closed Facebook groups of one of the winners. But I can tell you this, outside of thanking God, their number one discussion is the turmoil that's been created by this nonpartisan process and whether things were violated and things weren't violated and so forth. So I can tell you this, because as I look at one of the potential winners, and it's not settled yet. People, they were younger people, a little bit newer to the political process in Park Forest, and very energized. And not all younger people, but newer to the process. And they're being educated right now for the first time in their lives as to what nonpartisan might mean or not or so forth. And they're, so the discussion is taking place inside their group, and it's entirely prompted by the e-news communication. For what it's worth, there's talk happening.
Well, I can tell you that people don't understand the process at all, because there were a lot of people saying, well, May was endorsed by Robin Kelly, and Austin Berg was endorsed by Robin Kelly, and, named all people that they were endorsed by, but they were endorsed by people, not organizations, not a political party. And people they don't understand that that is the problem. They just think that it's because somebody endorsed him. It is not because somebody endorsed him, it's because of the party that endorsed.
I just for 1 second address Dan. Dan, our authority is more or less, I guess, moral. We can't actually find a candidate. We can't actually, put them in jail or anything like that. It's only moral authority.
But we don't live in a moral world.
Right. If we find things out in time, then there is more impact the sooner we find out. But some people mentioned the timing of it. Yeah, it happened at the perfect time for all the more. So it does seem like it was calculated. Sure.
Even though some of the candidates weren't officially endorsed, and I guess I would like this clarified more, the fact that you're in a picture with somebody and it's also on a postcard or whatever, I have trouble with that, because it may not be in words, but it's implied or inferred. And so therefore, I think there's a lot of people who might have been candidates, some, I don't want to say a lot, and I'm getting my words, and I'm new too, so sorry, who might have been stepping over or whatever. That's good.
I think part of the answer is publicly rebuking at every forum that no candidate can take an endorsement from any political organization. And at every forum, at every meeting of the Nonpartisan Committee, at every public event that they attend, at every piece of mail they send out, a public rebuking that no candidate is allowed to take an endorsement from political organization. And the definition of putting money on next to a candidate, the Friends of Al Riley put more than $4,000 into May Brandon's campaign. Friends of Al Riley, the Democratic Township Supervisor. So it doesn't. So Al Riley, to a certain extent, endorsed May Brandon.
Is that a violation?
No, it's not a violation, but it's in a gray area. The gray area that you can't do anything about, I don't think. You can't make a state law that you can't have political support. You can't do that. So I think what we're doing with this great organization, which has been together since the 1950s, is coming up to the politics of the 2020s. And that's what we have to do.
So because of that, we lose our integrity? Okay,
Yes.
that was it. That was the whole thing, the moral integrity.
The moral integrity can be done at every meeting, at every public forum. We will not accept, you should not, we cannot allow a candidate to have any political contribution. And it's not, and one more thing, it's not political contributions. The business people who have ties or want ties with certain candidates to allow their platform to be approved at a board meeting contributed money to a candidate, the real estate. who are in a great fight with the Village of Park Forest now.
Actually, well.
No, go ahead. Anybody first before me? I got a big mouth.
We have 12 minutes remaining.
Ms. Graham, did you have your hand up?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Oh,
No.
Okay.
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 Go ahead.
Go ahead then.
So and Al and I have had this conversation many times over the years about what you can and can't do. This organization influence is because it's proactive. There are all kinds of laws about what candidates can and can't do that have to do with our Constitution, and have to do with power politics, and have to do with money, and have to do with Supreme Court rulings. I don't think it is worth our while looking at stopping bad behavior that we perceive to be bad. And we can certainly take the bad behavior to an extreme and see that there are crooks around us in school boards everywhere. So we know we're fighting a good fight. Our best efforts are to offer candidates what they need to get elected in Park Forest. That is where the influence comes from. And that's these wonderful forums, and there was a time, there used to be 7 of them, or 6 of them. So whenever we come up as a committee, and I think the committee, is going to work on this between now and the next election, it should be what can we make it more attractive to candidates to participate with the nonpartisan rules so they will maybe change their behavior as candidates.
Other than forums in the past, is there anything else?
Well, the nonpartisan committee communicating the rules of the road to the likely to vote. A mailer in Park Forest costs about $1,200 during a local election if you want to just mail to those people that are likely to vote. So the nonpartisan committee could actually put out in the middle of an election a notice about what the rules of the road are. And please judge these candidates as to whether they're going to abide by these rules. Mail is one way people impact things.
Yes.
I think that's a good idea, and that one thing we did this year for the candidates was, Marlon was the guy who did it, was got the voter lists from Cook County and Will County and distributed them to the candidates for their use. So, we're making that work. But I think, we do have money, thanks to you all, have paid your dues. And maybe we could do a mailer next year. I think that's a good idea.
That's awesome. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is, I'm going off topic, but it's another, just a question. I did just only able to attend one debate, and I remember that someone from the group said that there was an agreement for everyone to be respectful, the candidates to be respectful. Was that something signed? Well, yes or no? Am I wrong about that? Because there was one candidate, I was shocked 3 different times. Now, no one said anything, okay, but if we're going to talk about all these things out here now, did they sign something that they were going, yes or no? That's a simple question.
Nope.
Was anything,
No.
yes or no? But did they verbally agree to it?
Being respectful?
During comments?
That's not a committee's standard.
Okay, I'm just asking because I remember hearing that.
Well, it's probably a
And
request, that's something.
I don't know how it was said.
Maybe moderators can do this.
Moderators, absolutely not. He didn't win either.
Therefore, he didn't impact your vote, so.
No, he didn't. The person who I voted for impacted my vote.
Fair enough.
I think the moderator might have made a comment in the beginning.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. The moderator might have said in the beginning,
That we all be
respectful to each other.
And
Yeah.
it was sad, very sad.
So what is the motion before the board at this moment?
Because I had thinking that we only had 12 minutes
Now we have
left. I know.
The most recent motion was from Mr. Gladstone that the NPC invite candidates to a meeting after elections to discuss what went well and what didn't go well. And Al noted that that was the intention of this meeting. I don't know how well that's communicated to candidates.
Well, we know, all the
They
candidates
know.
know.
So that was the motion, so do we need to act on that?
I thought that we had a motion about maybe sending, do we have a motion about maybe sending a statement about the perceived impropriety?
Okay.
Through a mailer
To do what mail?
from the NPC?
No, we didn't have a
No, we
motion.
didn't have a motion yet. Would you like to
We
move
have
for
to
that?
deal,
Mark?
no, we
We
have to
deal with
deal with this.
We have to
Yeah,
deal
deal
with.
with
What's the motion?
Motion is whether the MPC should have a meeting following elections for candidates to discuss what went well and what didn't go well. And we noted that that was, in fact, the intention of this meeting.
So moved.
So moved. Second?
So in addition to this meeting, is that the motion?
I would have suggested that that was specifically for the candidates to be questioned and to respond to the issues that were presented during the election.
Like a closed meeting with just the MPC and the candidates?
To be decided by the committee.
I don't think it has to be closed, but
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
No, I thought it
Maybe
was
now.
open.
I'd like to suggest that we vote this motion down and that instead of that, that the board take up the notion of how to communicate
That's,
with the candidates.
I would ask that the motion be withdrawn and then.
I will withdraw the motion.
Okay. Then I would make a motion.
withdraw. Well, I second it.
I move that we ask our newly appointed directors to come up with a plan of action and ask any members that they want to participate with them to do so.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? If anyone wanted to take on the board, you can on the board. I'll help the board. Anyone want to help the board?
I have a question.
We have one person.
Okay, yes.
Before we get to that, I just have a question. First of all, has there been any precedent before in regards to endorsements from outside organizations dealing with Park Forest? Has that ever happened before?
And internal.
I think
And perhaps
so,
even internal, yes.
I think so back in, when Park Forest was a Republican town. You know, I don't know, but it's not happened for years and years and years.
Okay, and finally, because I know we don't have that much
It's
time
not
like this.
Yeah, not like this. It has not been like this in years.
Okay, finally, my other concern is that if we do see one of the names of the candidates on these endorsement sheets, I just want to say that we shouldn't necessarily assume that that particular candidate or candidates actually knew anything about it, asked for an endorsement, or anything like that. I'm hoping that this congregation, if you will, really comes together to really define what actually did happen. Because some of the things I've heard is conjecture.
I was honored and I still didn't get a straight answer, so.
You were what?
On that
On the
nomination.
other nominations,
Okay.
the
I
endorsement.
still can't get a straight answer, where it came from, who made it, and. yeah.
Why?
Why I was on there.
You know what's happening.
Well, is our job to do the detective work, or is our job to say why we have the principles that we have?
I think in this instance, we need to address what's happening. We need to address what's happening right now.
Yeah, and it's not fair to the three of them back here that they were a part of that and didn't have anything to do with it. It's not fair to them. Somebody needs to say something.
They may have also have benefited from it as well.
It's not a matter
But
of
it's not a
whether-
matter of whether they benefited or not. We know
Well,
they
you just
did,
said
but
it
the
wasn't-
point
you
is,
just
they
said it
didn't
wasn't
endorse
fair.
that. They didn't ask for it. If they didn't ask for it, then why should you guys, somebody needs to say something. They didn't ask for this.
Okay.
They didn't ask for it.
So, I know she had her hand up. You got your
I
hand?
was gonna change the subject.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that right now.
Right now.
Can I make a comment?
Chair.
Yes.
I think that if we are gonna be viable, like Mr. Gladstone said, there has to be a combination of those things. And when we talk about morality, I guess at the top sets the tone, because if you look at who's in the White House right now, and you look at the morality that we have today, it's bleeding into everything that we do and everything that we're about. So whatever we can do to help morality, I think it's what we should do. We should be looking at who knew about this, what candidates actually knew about it before it went out.
We got it.
Question?
7:45.
Question?
Well, he had his hand up.
Just quickly, in regards to the statement of whether or not one may have been benefited for being endorsed, it strikes me as someone who endorses an uncontested election. It seems that the people who put it out, we're benefiting whoever else is on there. It's not the people who didn't need an endorsement in the first place. And so once again, how do we determine what the actual purpose was for their putting it out in such a fashion?
Question, can we send a notice to whoever's doing this, the committee that did the infraction? Could the board send a letter or something to the Democrat committee informing them? Huh?
They won't respond.
I mean, but could we still do something like that?
Yes.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
send an email to them.
You send email to them?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just
I
thinking maybe,
suggest in the future it be
send something to
practiced
them, yeah.
that we send a notice to the Rich Township Democratic
That's
Organization.
what I'm saying, exactly.
I don't know in this political structure whether there's a Republican, Rich Township Republican Organization,
Yes, sir.
since we're both in Cook and Will County,
Right.
to the Will County Democratic Precinct Organization. In the future, we should make it a practice to emphasize the nonpartisan nature of the Park Forest elections. We should send communication prior to all future elections to those entities.
Well, could I make a motion for that, for the committee to, to send?
There's a motion.
Well, they both got their hands up. Okay. Comment?
Make a motion first?
Well, there's a motion.
Well, there's no second, so there's no motion.
I second it.
Okay.
Okay, there's a
Is there any
second.
All
discussion?
right, so to the motion.
All in favor say.
No, I would like to speak to the
Oh,
motion.
you want to speak by the motion? Oh, yes. Okay, go ahead.
Again, we have limited resources. I can't be more direct. It is a waste of our time to try to get folks to tell folks outside of Park Forest how to conduct their business as long as they're not breaking the law. Our best influence is speaking to ourselves and the ever-increasing group of people who maybe don't understand why is it that Park Forest officials don't go to jail? Why is it when elected officials get elected, you suddenly have a new attorney and all the ordinances get changed? We need to educate ourselves and new people. So I suggest that we use our resources to communicate internally and to communicate to candidates. Because those parties out there, they're going to do what they damn well feel like doing.
I would like to see a statement by this committee about what the candidates signed, disavow any knowledge, let it be known in the statement that the candidates disavow any knowledge of their having been endorsed by the Democrats. And, just let people know that it is against policy, and I don't care how you get it out. Somebody read it on Channel 4, you send mailings out to the voters in Park Forest, but I think something has to be done now. And it has to be done to protect this committee, it has to be done to protect the candidates whose names were used without their knowledge, and it has to be done to let the people of Park Forest know that, I mean, the election was a real kerfuffle, but, you know, this is our stance on it, and just let it go. That's all we can do. And whether we receive anything back from them is mute, because it's a moot point, because we don't care if we receive anything back from them, as long as the people know.
That's the discussion on the motion so far. Any more discussion on the motion?
Reread the motion.
The motion is to communicate with the people of Park Forest. Is that the motion?
Oh, you talking about my motion?
Yes.
Oh, it was to send some kind of contact to let them know, whoever's doing this, that it's not welcome in Park Forest. Right.
Yeah, I do have another comment on that then.
Okay.
When, I'm Andy Gladstone, I was on the Board of Trustees a million years ago. And when I was up for re-election, I don't know how many of you will remember, there was a furnace that was trying to get business to burn garbage. And they came to the village of Park Forest, and they offered all of the candidates up for re-election $2,000 for their campaigns. And that was that garbage company. It was a legal donation, potentially. We all agreed that we would reject it out of hand simply because of the conflict of interest, because then it would say, okay, we're taking $2,000 and now we're going to be supporting this furnace. And it was an outrageous presumption on an organization outside, beyond our control, that would have been completely legal. And so I don't believe that we have any control over any outside entity, and thereby we have to influence people within the village. Yes, the community. Churches. If a church decides to endorse a particular candidate, is that an undue influence? All of these things need to be presented as possibilities, and we need to exercise our responsibility then by educating entities and individuals and the community at large, rather than a garbage company in Robbins, Illinois.
Is there any more discussions before we close?
I would like to recognize this guy over here, John Vanderbilt. Is it okay for him to address it? I would request that he address the board.
No, there's no only motion here.
I know, I'm sorry. Are you asking for a vote? I haven't heard second.
No, it's been seconded.
It was a motion and it was seconded, and we're having a discussion, and it's gonna be voted on, and then we can move on.
Okay, call the motion.
Okay, okay, is there a motion to approve?
No.
Are we approved?
No.
Okay, so now what's next? We can, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed?
Okay, three opposed.
No, at least four.
Four.
At least four.
Okay.
So I call for the vote.
Yeah, let's,
You can repeat the motion, it's still.
The motion is to send communication to the Ridge Township Democratic Committee that they were in the wrong.
I didn't know that was the thing. It wasn't specifically that at all.
Oh, well.
It was to contact outside entities to tell them to stay out. No?
what was the motion?
That's why I didn't know where you was going with what you was saying.
Okay, well, I don't
Because what we was discussing was that the Democratic Committee had did something that these people was not aware of. So my motion was to let them know we did not appreciate that.
Allegedly not aware of.
Allegedly, well, it was allegedly, okay.
The motion is to let the Ridge Township Democratic Committee let us know that we did not appreciate their endorsement. Is that right?
Yeah, something to that effect, you know, not
That is
that
good.
No, can we motion to table that to, withdraw?
Well, vote it up or down.
Yeah.
I mean-
Someone who has experience.
If you don't like the wording, you vote
Well, I don't like the motion because we've already,
Bingo.
we've already done that by email. And as, I agree with what Doug said, that we really need to focus on the people of Park Forest and try to educate them as to why we want the candidates to do what we ask them to do, why we think it's important that they not slate up, and so forth. I think that's the way we need to go rather than working against outside.
And we've also passed a motion saying that the board should be basically taking the next step.
Bingo.
We're going to do that.
So vote it now. So vote it down.
Call for a vote.
Call for a vote.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Yeah.
Opposed?
One, two. 13, 14? 14.
Votes for, or raise their hands or not?
Votes for, you want to raise your hand?
Well, I withdraw the motion then.
I thought that was opposed.
That's okay.
So it's,
That's what the no
motion
vote
fails.
does.
Motion fails.
Okay, motion fails.
Okay, now.
So now,
Let's put it this way.
let's ask if there's any other business. but
Is there,
pass the time.
that's our time now. We have to
I
go.
thought, President, purpose of this meeting in the past is to ask the elected officials, the people participating in the election to address what happened. The trustees were here and they were able to present some of their concerns.
Yeah, but our time
Is
is
that
running
your
out.
man?
That was not, that was a motion, and I don't think that's not
Time's up.
something we agreed to do today.
Oh, my
Okay,
God.
I don't know.
Okay, so,
Ask if there's any more business.
is there any more business? If not, we need to close. Yes?
I move that we propose a $250 scholarship for a government relations type of student for both Rich Township and Crete-Monee to apply for on behalf of this committee.
Second.
Question on that. Are you establishing any parameters for the qualifications?
The committee would, if we so choose to have one, they could.
Is it needs of educating students?
A scholarship for a student that wants to study political affairs, political science, thank you.
At college or?
Yeah, what age?
High school or top?
The two Park Forest schools are Rich East and Crete-Monee. It's not Park Forest.
Well, hold on. May I?
Yes.
Mike, might I suggest you amend the, to any students, high school students who live in Park Forest? Because there's also another high school that
Yes.
draws from Park Forest plus
Yes,
the,
yes, I don't.
whatever the charter is.
Friendly amendment, yes.
That's, anyone second?
Does anyone
Can you,
second?
can you clarify the motion? So we know what we're seconding?
What? You saying high school, all the Park Forest and Monee, you said?
A Park Forest student studying political science for $250.
So somebody going to college.
Someone going to college?
Yeah.
For this year? For this year, 2019?
No.
Might be a little
Get
soon.
it done now.
No, my point, you gotta say what you're saying, for what year, moving 2020, 2000?
Well, then that would be the committee problem. If you do it April 15th to May 15th, you can get it in before the end of the school year.
would it be conditioned that that student intends to major
Intends to major
in
in
political science or
science.
public affairs?
Intention.
You'd have to come up with an application, a process.
That's a lot to do before April 15th.
Yeah.
This should be tabled.
Tiffany,
The next meeting.
My question is, do we have the money to fund that? In the nonpartisan?
Can you amend
it to 2020?
You have one more person.
Did anybody hear my question at all?
No, Tiffany, we didn't.
So I was asking, do we have the money in nonpartisan?
It's about half of our annual
To do
budget.
that?
Chip is gonna finish her last meeting.
Well, another thing is there's another group coming in here at noon, so we need.
We have to get out of it, we have to wrap it up.
Okay.
No.
I would suggest that this item be tabled until our next meeting when we have
It's
more
not
time
gonna
to
be
discuss it.
resolved.
I second the motion.
That's a motion?
Okay.
Call the question on the motion to table?
Sorry,
Vote.
Motion to table.
Motion to table, vote please.
Second.
Well, I'm just calling for the question, it's already on the floor. Call for the question.
Asking for a vote.
Asking
So
for a
we're
vote.
taking control of this meeting. Who is it?
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, there's so much going on, okay. So,
Would the chair please call for a vote?
On the motion to
all
table.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
second.
All right.
No.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.